I have a great HOA and Karen video for you today. Here's our first story. HOA election overturned, posted by EdYang73. New owner in a fierce battle with an incumbent HOA board. California, city in Orange County, almost 700 homes, mostly high-end single-family homes to townhouse-style condos, so like $1 to $5 million. There have been ongoing complaints about the bullying tactic of the president for years. He controls the board, who are just yes men, 5 board members. In May 2023, he and another board member were up for election. Due to the fact that we almost never achieve quorum, 25%, we launched a stealth campaign to write in 2 candidates and then gathered ballots and proxies. The result? We had about 170 votes for our 2 candidates, 40 for president and 25 for the other incumbent. I was at the Inspector of Elections a night off when they opened ballots while others were on the Zoom call. They asked quietly if there were any nominations from the floor. They paused and then moved on. We were all confused with what that was. I asked, well, what does that mean? They said that if you didn't nominate any candidate from the floor, any write-in candidates were not valid. Thus, they disqualified all of our ballots and wouldn't even give us a count of how many we had. Naturally, we were furious. My mistake was not having a copy of the election rules handy. It wasn't until later that I read our election rules clearly allowed write-ins. Section 5.4 said that write-in candidates are permitted provided they meet the required candidate qualification, so they must be a record owner, current in assessments, and so on. Owners bombarded the property management company with complaints, so they were forced to set up a redo election coming up on October 11th. Their excuses for why they kept changing, well, they didn't nominate from the floor. They alleged some proxies looked suspicious. They blamed the Inspector of Elections for not sending all owners a proxy as required by our rules, and so on. Fast forward to today. They've done everything possible to confuse this redo election. Ballots mailed out at the very latest window required by law, which is 30 days, with some owners not receiving it. There were proxies mailed out early and separate, which confused owners. Ballots left off half the owners, mostly women. When confronted, the inspector blamed the project management company for sending them an incomplete file, but now they have a complete file. Myself, being the campaign lead and one of the candidates, have been served with violation notices coincidentally. Mine had a due date only 36 hours from when I received it. When I challenged it, they blamed it on a glitch and moved it to 45 days. A board member not up for election sent out 3 separate email blasts attacking me, not by name, viciously, and then attacking and lying about our 2 candidates, which also violates our election rules. They plan to mass email links to electronically signed proxies to all homeowners. I protested to the project management and the inspector that this is illegal. On the monthly board meeting during open forum, they wouldn't answer questions. Their attorney was on and shut me down, and then they muted me when my 3 minutes was up. So my question is, if they come up with some reason to overturn this redo election, what else can we do? Maybe file a case in small claims court and present all the evidence from the first and upcoming election, ask a judge to declare our candidates as rightful winners, if we win, which we are on track to, and then initiate a recall of all 5 board members, 3 if we win, and kick out the current 2. Do you agree with this comment? Talk to either an HOA lawyer or a lawyer with knowledge of the Davis-Sterling Act. Yeah, if they're pulling illegal things, you have a lawyer that specializes in HOA stuff, then yeah, get them. I reported my former landlord to the IRS for tax fraud as revenge for him making up lies on me to keep my deposit. He had to file for bankruptcy and lost his condo. Posted by Extremely Tired of HR. I'm so glad he lost his frickin' house. I found this guy on Craigslist a few years ago. I like renting condos from private owners as opposed to renting apartments. Typically, by renting a condo, it's safer, you have more caring residents, and you get to have a luxury apartment-style home with all the amenities, and you can negotiate pricing and so on. I am an excellent tenant, and anyone who I have rented from will tell you that. I paid a $1,000 deposit to move into this guy's condo, and I was on a year lease. He lives in another state, but we were on the same time zone. On month 8 of my lease, I came home to a door that wouldn't open. I couldn't get the door unlocked for crap. I had 2 keys on me, and as much as I tried to turn them, I couldn't. One of the keys even broke in the lock. I waited 2 hours. I called and texted and emailed my landlord, and he did not pick up. I thought maybe he had someone to change the locks for some reason. I honestly didn't know what to think and had no one to help me. The lady who lived across from me saw me in distress as she was going into her apartment. I had never seen her, but she asked me if I were okay, and I explained to her that I couldn't get into the apartment. She told me that she knows of an on-call locksmith, and she gives me his number. I tell her thanks and reach out to my landlord a few more times. No response. I had no choice but to call the locksmith, plus I had to pee like crazy. The locksmith arrives and could not get the door unlocked with my key. He says he can replace the lock for like $100, and I told him I was renting a condo and couldn't get in touch with the owner and didn't know when would be the next time I could get in touch with him. After he took the lock off, he told me it was faulty. So he replaced the lock. I told the landlord this via email and text and voicemail and told him that I could send him copies of the keys if he wanted. Okay, so fast forward to the end of my lease. I demand that he does a walkthrough with me, and he said he wouldn't. I told him that if he didn't do a walkthrough, I would be notifying the condo office, as he did not have permission to sublease by the association. He then had a friend to serve as his proxy to come meet me and walk through the unit. The place was spotless. I know how to clean. I took multiple photos and videos and showed his proxy, who is a police officer, the unit. Actually, they are both police officers who used to work together. We both literally tested all the appliances, faucets, checked the blinds, carpets, hardwood, everything. His proxy gave me the okay and said that everything looked great. I give his proxy the keys and later that night left for my new city. So fast forward to a month later. I haven't heard from him about my deposit. He ignored all my emails and phone calls. He finally gets back with me 2 months after I moved out and has all this ridiculous made-up crap about how I damaged his unit. Broken blinds, scratches on the hardwood floor. He made it seem like I damaged his door by getting the lock replaced. He even said that there were scratches on the outside of his door, rust here and there, broken dishwasher, sink, and oven, broken dryer, just all these lies. I would never leave a unit in that condition. He sent me an itemized list of all the charges that magically came out to be $1,000, the same as my deposit. He was always planning to keep my money. He wanted that money to either ball on it or upgrade his condo, and I hated him. I decided I wasn't going to go to court because I had moved to a different state and I live alone, but I thought of something. He rented to me under the table and likely didn't claim my rent payments as earned income. I had all my wire transfers on my bank statement. I had his routing and account number and a copy of his driver's license as we agreed to swap IDs when I signed the lease to make sure that I wasn't getting scammed. I found his out-of-state address online, gathered all my bank statements, gathered his bank account numbers, and made a report with the IRS. About a few years later, I check up on things, and that jerk lost his condo and lost everything he owned in bankruptcy. I paid for and downloaded his court records and saw proof that he lost everything, including his condo and cars, and had his bank accounts seized. I'm not sure if he's went to jail or anything, but I'm so glad that jerk got his freaking karma. He stole money from me that I gave him to rent a condo, and he ends up losing that same condo to bankruptcy. Screw him and anyone who calls him a friend. He can rot for all I care. Now this comment here gives the truth and says, I wouldn't be surprised if your tip-off uncovered something much larger and more systematic. It tends to work out that way. Neighbor gets expensive smart home appliances installed on Wi-Fi with no password. Calls the police when I let them know that's bad. Posted by ULFR. I was farting around with a crappy laptop's Wi-Fi card and I saw that I had an access point that I could connect to that wasn't there before. Signal was so-so and I had my own internet, so I didn't bother trying to use that one, so I just sorta forgot about it. About a week later, I was unplugging some stuff and accidentally unplugged my wireless router, and while it was unplugged, my phone found the next accessible Wi-Fi access point, which was the one I'd found previously and not really bothered with. Not my circus, not my monkeys, you know? Then my phone pops up saying I need to install all of these smart home apps to make the appliances work, which didn't make sense. I'm enough of an IT guy to know that unless there's a burning need for it, home automation isn't really the best idea. Absolutely no telling who can access that information. These people had their garage doors, heating and air conditioning, lights, interior and exterior, televisions and refrigerator hooked up to a Wi-Fi with no password. In the industry, we call that dumb as a bag of hammers. Once I plugged the router back in to appease these suddenly irate family members wondering where the internet went, I hooked up my dog and took him for a walk. Before I left the house, I installed the smart home app and turned on one exterior spotlight and then looked for the house it was attached to. Presumably, if I was able to use their Wi-Fi, they were in line of sight. Once I saw the light that was on, I turned it off to make sure. The house was on the next street over, directly behind my house. There's a huge hill in the way that the builders left because Mother Nature didn't flatten my part of the country as a courtesy, so lots can be next to each other without being easily accessible. That meant going the long way around. My dog is an adorable 35-pound cockapoo who has much better people skills than I do. When I have to go to talk to people I don't know, he comes along because, well, he's about as threatening as a wet noodle. Don't tell him I said that. And I can't be that bad of a man if my dog is as awesome as he is. So we make our way over to the neighbor's house and I knock on their door. A nice old lady answers it, old enough to have moved out kids, but not old enough to be considered a Q-tip in my humble opinion. She forgets to ask what I want and immediately goes all gooey over my dog, and her husband hears the adorable appreciation sounds coming from his front door and investigates. He, too, is floored by my dog's awesomeness. There's about a minute of him getting all the attention, and I thought building a rapport before I remember why I'm here. I ask how they like their new smart home stuff, and they immediately start getting weirded out. Husband says, "We like it just fine. How do you know we got all that stuff?" Please don't take this the wrong way, I say, but you don't have a password on your wireless. My phone connected to it by accident and told me about all the stuff you had installed. Wife cocks her head to one side, and husband's brow starts developing a thunderous quality. I start talking faster. I'm just here to let you know that you really should put a password on your Wi-Fi, or anyone can use it to do stuff like open your garage doors. Husband's brow is now in full fury mode, and he opens his mouth to, presumably, shout at me. But before he can, the wife says, "Oh, that's what the installer guy was talking about. He kept saying I needed to encrypt the thingy or something like that. We've never bothered with the password because it's a pain in the butt to set up and remember." Husband has gone from thunderous fury to bewilderment, and he looks at his wife and says, "Encrypt the what now?" I don't feel like getting voluntold to set up these people's network and appliances for them, so I say, "Okay, gotta go, bye." I power walk away from their house, and once clear, we mosey back towards my house. About 2 hours later, someone starts knocking at the front door to my house. Now, I live in an in-law apartment in the basement of my parents' house, so that's not my door. My mother answers the door and then stomps down to the door to my part of the house, throws it open, and tells me the police are here, again in a frosty voice. I hustle up the stairs, and there's Officer Dave, it's not his real name, but the only officer in my town at that point who would know enough about the computers to actually have a conversation with me without getting a must-smash nerd face. I say, "Hi Dave, what's..." He cuts me off before I can even finish. "You promised me you were done with this crap after that whole Main Street thing. You freaking promised, and now I look like a butthole." Whoever had set up the timing on the stoplights from the main road through my town after some pretty serious construction did an absolutely awful job, and traffic was horrific. Me and a locksmith friend decided to fix the problem. After reporting the problem to town hall, got nowhere. We didn't break anything. I mean, he picked the lock and I hacked the light, and then we locked up when we were done. We got caught on the last light. The only reason I didn't go to jail was because Dave backed me up and made everyone wait a day to see if traffic was better, which it was. I then promised him no more shenanigans. What? I haven't done anything, says I. Then why the heck am I getting calls about you opening and closing people's garage doors and turning their lights on and off? To be fair, that did sound like the sort of thing that I do. Not to break into someone's house, just to mess with them. I'm mischievous, not evil. And then the light dawns. I point and I ask, did you get called by the people living in that house? Because I went over there a little while ago to tell them that they needed to put a password on their Wi-Fi. The only thing I did was turn on a spotlight to see which house it was. Nothing more than that, swear to God. They don't have a password. There's a thud as Dave face palms. I let out a yup in sympathy. He sighs and says, stay out of trouble, and I wave bye. Turns out the husband had called the police and gave a vague description of me and the dog and said that I lived nearby, and one of the other cops gave Dave a hard time about him cutting me slack before he drove out to talk to me. The couple got a call back to tell them that the issue was resolved and please secure your Wi-Fi. 2 days later, there's a password on their Wi-Fi and we all lived happily ever after, except for getting the stank eye from that couple whenever I walk by. Karen story time. This one's called Give Me Your Game, posted by Billy RKO 1987. I live in an apartment with my wife for 5 years. This situation happened recently. I was sitting at our kitchen table eating dinner and playing Pokemon Pinball. I was using my Game Boy Color. I had our kitchen window open and the blinds moved so I could get a good breeze from outside, and I figured, what could go wrong? Well, enter Karen and her son. Never even seen her before. I'm playing my game and I hear something behind me. I assumed the family of birds that live in the tree right outside were the family of bunnies. Wrong. A boy asked me what I'm doing. My back is to him, and I explained that I'm eating dinner. Stupid me decided to say I'm also playing a game. I told him the game and the handheld that it's for. He said, okay, went to his mom who was a few feet away. I went back to what I'm doing. Well, the boy came to my window again and asked if he could play it. I explained that I don't know him. I won't just give my stuff to just anyone, and maybe his mom could get him one. There's a disc replay store nearby and half-price books. Both probably have it. He said, oh, okay, and went back to his mom. Well, the mom, I guess, didn't like hearing the word no. Now she is at my window, not asking, demanding I give my video games to her as a peace offering. Peace offering for what? I again said no. I'm not going to give my stuff to anyone. I have no idea if I would even get it back. She didn't like it, got mad, stomping her feet a few times. I closed my window, closed the blinds, and went back to what I'm doing. Fine? No, far from it. A few minutes later, I see the famous flashing lights. When I see 3 police cars stop at the apartment building I live in, I checked outside. Karen was talking to an officer before he managed to get out of his police car, and she was pointing to my apartment. I knew immediately what I'm getting. 2 officers go into the mailroom and press my doorbell. I open the door and let them in my apartment. I explained that I'm eating dinner and playing a game. Her son asked about my game, asked to play, but I said no. I did explain about 2 nearby stores where he could get it if the stores have the handheld and the game of it. I'm asked if I ever punched her son and took it from him. I said, no, I never touched him. I never stole from him. It's my game and my stuff. I hear Karen yelling outside to the officers on the sidewalk that I should be arrested for assault to a minor, and jailed. I explained again that I never touched him, never touched her, and showed both officers where I was sitting and where they were outside my kitchen window. My neighbor in the next building called out to the officers that he had heard everything and has the interaction on camera. His landlord installed a few cameras, and due to package thieves in the area, and wanted to help him catch them by putting up a few cameras. Lucky for me, his landlord was there and showed police the footage. Karen went white and started yelling that we are horrible people, that we lied. She's gonna sue. She got a nice talking to about misuse of 911. Her son was nice. I saw him with his father a few times. The boy says hi to me, and the dad apologized to me about his ex-wife. I guess the son filled him in. Apparently, this wasn't the first time that she did this, which is why he divorced her. He has full custody now because she assaulted a boy in a mall and tried to take his Nintendo Switch. She's in jail. The boy did get a Game Boy Color from his father. HOA secrets exposed, tax evasion, fraud, and extortion. How I uncovered it. Find out how by clicking on the video on the screen. You don't want to miss this story, and I will see you there.